Welcome to this mindfulness-based meditation practice, which is focused on helping us manage overthinking. Today we'll be using a technique called noticing to help us to include our busy mind and the thoughts that it throws out within the mindfulness practice itself. The human being is a thinking animal. On an average, we think about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. That in itself is not a problem. It is just the mind doing what minds are supposed to do. The issue that arises is that nearly 80% of these thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive. Our thoughts follow ingrained patterns of thinking and reinforce negative emotions and unhelpful behavior patterns. But when we notice our thoughts without judging them, it creates a space between ourselves and our busy minds. Over time, this practice breaks the ingrained patterns we are so used to. And then when we move from non-judgment to actively offering ourselves compassion, we can gradually replace these thought and behavior loops with more constructive ways of coping with life. So in today's practice, we will be working with a technique I call noticing. It comes from a parenting tool called sportscasting, which was an approach that I learned when I started researching into gentle parenting. Sportscasting is a technique where you describe what the child is doing and what may be happening inside the child without judging them, in a neutral tone of voice, in a non-shaming way, just the way a good sports commentator will describe the action on the field without adding in their own judgment. When we apply this technique to our inner experience, we simply note or describe what is happening in our minds and our bodies without making assumptions or judgments about it. This practice is particularly helpful for overthinking because it creates a small but significant space between ourselves and our thoughts. Instead of being completely caught up in thinking, we become the observer of our thoughts and our experience. The way that we'll practice this is simple. For the duration of this meditation, we will focus on the breath going in and out of the body. And when you notice a thought arise, you can say to yourself silently or out loud, I notice I am thinking. When you notice an emotion or physical sensation, you will note, I notice frustration, or I notice tension in my shoulders, or even I notice intense emotion without necessarily naming the emotion you are experiencing. This might sound simple, but it is a powerful way to step back from being completely or over-identified with our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Now find a position that feels both comfortable and alert for your body to do. You can be seated in a chair or a cushion, or lying down. You can either close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a moment to settle in to your position. Then feel the points where your body makes contact with the surface beneath you. If at any point during this practice you feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed, please know that you can open your eyes, adjust your position, return to the sensation of your breath, or even stop the practice midway. Your well-being is the utmost priority. Let us begin by taking 3 deep breaths together. Make your exhale slightly longer and slower than the inhale. Breathing in fully, hold, and then slowly and gently exhale out. Once again, we breathe in deeply and hold, and then slowly release the breath out from your body. One more time. Breathing in and hold, and slowly and gently letting go. Now allow your breath to find its natural rhythm. Don't try to control it. Just observe the flow of the breath in and out. For this practice, it is the breath that is our anchor. Keep your attention on your breath without trying to change it. You can notice the natural rhythm of breathing, the inhale and the exhale, or even the gentle rise and fall of your chest. As you try to focus your attention on your breath, your mind will naturally produce thoughts. This is what minds do. They generate thoughts, just as hearts pump blood. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you for thinking or with your mind for producing these thoughts. No matter the quality, quantity, or the intensity, it is just a part of the human experience. When you notice that your mind has wandered into thinking, say the words out loud or in your mind. I notice I am thinking. And then gently bring your attention back to your breath. Try not to judge yourself for getting distracted. Try not to judge the content of your thoughts or the intensity of any emotions that may accompany them. And finally, try not to get caught up in justifying your thoughts or chastising yourself or diving into the details of the story around your thought. The key is to use the simple phrase, I notice, to create a small space between you and the thought. Now let's expand this practice to include emotions and physical sensations. As you sit in practice, you may notice various emotions arising. Perhaps impatience, or curiosity, or boredom. You may notice an emotion in response to the thoughts you are experiencing. You may notice physical sensations, tension, warmth, tingling, or heaviness. Your emotions may be accompanied by physical sensations. When you notice an emotion, simply state, I notice impatience, or I notice curiosity. If the emotion feels complex, don't try to dissect it out. Instead state, I notice motion. Similarly, When you notice a sensation, simply note, I notice tension in my shoulders, or I notice warmth in my hands. You don't have to change anything, not your thoughts, nor your emotions, nor your physical sensations. If a physical sensation gives rise to discomfort, allow yourself to respond gently. It is perfectly okay to scratch an itch or change your position. But whatever your response, try to be slow and deliberate and intentional. And after noting, gently return your attention to your breath. Friend, the simple act of noticing and noting creates a small but important shift in perspective. Instead of, I am impatient, it becomes, I notice impatience. Instead of, my shoulders are tense, it becomes, I notice tension in my shoulders. This is the subtle shift that helps us to see that we are not our thoughts or emotions or sensations. We are the awareness that notices them. Now let us specifically apply this technique to overthinking. If you find yourself caught up in a spiral of thoughts, overanalyzing the situation, or worrying about something in the future, first simply recognize the presence of overthinking. Then allow yourself to note, I notice overthinking. Feel how the simple phrase creates a small space between you and the overthinking pattern. When we are overthinking, we're often caught up in stories about the past or future. You may note, I notice thinking about the past, or I notice planning for tomorrow. But sometimes even these phrases can pull us into the thought loops instead of away. If you find this to be so, return to the simple phrase, I notice thoughts, I notice emotions, I notice sensations, I notice overthinking. Remember, the goal isn't to stop thinking or to have only certain kinds of thoughts. The goal is to change our relationship to thinking and to our experience by creating a small space of awareness. If you find yourself getting frustrated with this practice, Thinking thoughts such as, I am not doing this right, or this isn't working. Please know that such thoughts are perfectly normal as well. Simply note, I notice judging, or I notice frustration with the practice. Bringing a non judgmental attitude and awareness, even when we judge ourselves or others, is the very heart of this and every mindfulness practice. As we continue, you might notice that the simple act of noting creates a brief pause in the thinking process. In that pause, there is a moment of clarity and spaciousness. See if you can rest in that spaciousness, even if just for a moment, before returning to the breath. You might also notice that some thoughts are more sticky than others. They keep pulling your attention back. When you notice this happening, you might state, I notice getting caught in this thought. Then, instead of coming back to the breath, see if you can feel a physical sensation of being caught up. Note if there is a tension somewhere in your body or a sense of narrowing in your attention. Acknowledge and note that too. I notice tension or I notice narrowing. And then you can return to your breath. This practice brings us back to our body in the present moment and to direct experience rather than being lost in thoughts. And as we bring this practice to a close, take a moment to appreciate the awareness you've been cultivating. This ability to notice your experience without being completely identified with it. Even if you were only able to do it once or for a few moments, know that you can bring this simple noting practice into your daily lives. And now, bring your awareness back to your body, feeling once again the points of contact with the surface beneath you. You may want to wiggle your fingers or toes. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes if they were closed, taking the space around you. Thank you for practicing mindfulness today. May this simple practice support you whenever overthinking rises.